Hello folks, Steve Schulke here, one of the twin plumbers. I'm here at my training facility and wanted to reach out to you and give you some insight on what to look for, some tips to protecting that indoor air quality. You know, as a plumber and running thousands of calls and being in thousands of homes, I've seen it all. So I wanted to give you this very important information on what to look for. So I went ahead and also took the extra step and brought in the leading hygienist, environmentalist on mold and mildew, and that's twin brothers Mark and Steve Levy with the Mold Guys. Well, let's go ahead and start up the shower here. Here's our mock-up shower in our training facility, and Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are some things to look for in a shower?
Well, one of the first biggest red flags is this stain right here, and that is a huge red flag. You know, a lot of people they're going to look at a stain and they're going to dismiss it, but the reality is that it may still be wet because building materials have what's considered to be a normal moisture content range, and you could look at it, feel it, and it might still be wet. So there are a lot of tools that we use to determine whether it's still wet, but the reality is this is a major red flag for a lot of reasons. One is you don't want to just cover this up with paint. There could be moisture behind the wall that could compromise the insulation, and the insulation could be a breeding ground for mold. So that's a huge issue, one where you want to make sure that you take a look at that very carefully.
And a good thing here, folks, with the twin plumbers, when we come out, plumbers are the first one at your house. So what we do is we take moisture meters out to an affected area like this to confirm if it is saturated. So let's go ahead and move on to the next area of the home that you really need to look at. A lot of people fail to understand what a toilet seal can do. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mark. Mark.
Hi, David.
Hi. Good. Go ahead and give us some insight on indoor air qualities coming from a toilet. How can that be?
Well, this is really interesting because one of the things that I see all the time is that the wax seal is not properly sealed. And what happens is that you can lose moisture and it can seep underneath the floor. So we talked about staining in a shower. You can actually see stains in the flooring. Linoleum, water gets underneath there, you can actually see the stains from the linoleum. There could be mold growth that could be underneath the floor. Right. You could also have tiles that are porcelain. Let's just say, for example, what are tiles typically made of?
Well, natural. Everybody's going with natural stone now.
Right. So let's just say stone porous. But typically, what happens when moisture gets underneath it, it starts to buckle, crack. So when you see cracks and stains around your toilet, that's a major red flag that there's something that's going on. The other thing too, if you're on a raised foundation and you're having a loss of moisture, it's going underneath and getting into your subfloor and causing the subfloor to be compromised where mold can grow. And again, that can get into your home through normal air convection as well as what we call the stack effect. Now, the other thing that we look for is the back of the toilet area as well, because typically what happens is that when you have a loss of moisture, the water is going to flow. So it goes from wet to dry. So if you're on a cement slab or even on a situation where you have a wood subfloor, it's going to spread and it can get into the walls back in here and compromise the walls. So we're going to look for staining back here. We're going to look for buckling on the baseboards. Those are key signs that there's going to be some issues that are there. And typically when you have mold, what happens is you can open up the little area here and you can look at the back of this. So
you'll actually see mold growing on the porcelain.
You can see mold growing on the porcelain. You can also see mold growing inside the unit here as well. That's another indication that you may have a problem, or you do have a problem that's going on there. So when I see that there's cracks, there's staining and so forth, the first thing I tell them is that you need to get a plumber in here to make sure that your wax seal is properly sealed.
Right. All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and let's go to a typical cabinet, a wood cabinet. Then, you know, as a plumber, I've seen so many leaks where you go in, you fix the leak, you walk away, but the homeowner doesn't take action on drying it out properly. So isn't a kitchen sink, a cabinet, any cabinet in the home, whether it's a laundry, a lavatory, or a kitchen, isn't it a great place to breed all that mildew and mold and,
Oh,
and create
yeah.
that?
Well, typically what happens when you have a kitchen cabinet or even a vanity cabinet, what do people tend to do? They tend to overload it. What they do is that they put all these products in here so they can't see what's going on.
Right.
So many times what happens is that it's covering up whether there's an issue that's going on there or not because they can't see, it's overloaded.
Right.
I always tell people less is more. Especially if you're dealing with products, you want to make sure that you have a separate place to put your products.
Right.
So what you want to do is that when you open it up, you want to look for any kind of moisture, what I call pooling within this area as well. And then if you open it up and you're smelling something that's musty, that's a clear sign that you have an issue that's going on.
Right.
Another area of potential issue is where these faucets are. If they're not properly sealed, you get the water that gets backsplash onto here,
Right.
it seeps underneath there, it goes into the paneling, gets into the base panel, and can even get into the back wall, the drywall, where the mold could start growing behind the wall cavities. So those are key areas. So what do? I look for number one, I use my senses. Is there a smell? Is there a musty smell that's originating from this area? Are there any stains pulling the water? And the key thing is that when you see that there's a pulling or some kind of musty smell, I'd pick up that phone, get the Shoki brothers a call, and see what they can do to identify where that moisture issue may be. And make sure you seal around the edges here of the sink, because that moisture can get in there from backsplashing, things of that sort.
Right.
Now, you also have issues, we don't have one here, the dishwasher is notorious for leaking. So you want to make sure that you're looking at your dishwasher, you're making sure that there's things that are properly maintained for that perspective.
Right.
And even the refrigerator, huge problem.
Amazing how many people don't realize how much dust can accumulate underneath the refrigerator from the motor being hot. I mean, isn't that a great breeding ground?
Well, not only that, one of the key areas of concerns when you're dealing with the refrigerator is the ice maker. We have an ice maker line. Do you know how many times that ice maker line breaks?
Right.
So that's one of the key areas of concerns there, to make sure that it's properly in use, maintained, that there's no issues with that line. But then you're absolutely right. When you talk about the collection and the type of dust that it collects, that's a huge problem. I call that a dust reservoir. These dust reservoir collects dust, and dust is our enemy. And that's one of the things that we need to extract. We want to make sure that your whole area in here is clean and number one, dry and clean and free of dust. If you do that, you're going to have yourself a healthy home.
Perfect. Good information. Well, folks, there you have it. Hopefully this really helped out and giving you some tips to protecting your indoor air quality. And as always, thanks for watching.